Welcome, everyone. I'm Dana Peever, decision expert, author, speaker, and podcast host. You're listening to the Wildly Courageous Women podcast. More women than ever are faced with challenging decisions on a regular basis. I am so privileged to sit down with them to discuss exactly what they've gone through and how they've come out the other side, realizing their wildest dreams. I'm sure you'll be able to relate. And don't forget to stay to the end to take advantage of my latest free gift. Let's get started. Welcome to the Wildly Courageous Women podcast. I'm Dana Peever, decision expert, and as always, we're here talking about decisions that have been made in our lives that were courageous or impactful or changed the course of our life, or even one that maybe we wish we could go back on. Today, I have my daughter, Hayley Peever.
Hi.
In studio with me. Thanks so much for being here, Hayley.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get started, I want to remind our listeners that I ask all my guests what their most favorite app is at the end of the show. So that is an app that is outside of social media. So you'll want to stay tuned to hear what Hayley has to say because we sure get some great suggestions. You'll also want to stay to the end to make sure you get access to my latest freebie. So Hayley, we're going to take this step by step, okay? I want to have you set the stage for us as it relates to the decision that you've so graciously offered to share with us today. So I want you to start by telling us a little bit about the background, where you were living, what was going on in your life. Just get us started.
So this is more of a recent decision, I'd say in the past, month or two.
Mm-hmm.
I was living here, I guess.
Yes.
I am currently an architectural technology student at the the College of Sheridan College. And I had a sort of plan or an idea of where I wanted to be in the future, whether that's 5, 10, 15 years. And I just started doing some reflecting and thinking and maybe sort of changed my path, not necessarily crazy, but definitely changed my decisions on where I would like to end up in the future.
Okay. So let's go back a few years then. Tell us how you came about choosing, the current education you're following, the current path, and that just, walk us back because, I know the story, but share with our listeners, how long you've known you wanted to be in the program that you're in.
Well, I remember when I was probably 10 years old. You ask most 10-year-olds, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a firefighter, policeman. I always said I want to be an architectural engineer. That is what I would say when I was 10 years old. And it's been set in stone ever since then. Before I even went into high school, I would be on my iPad and searching up free house design apps so that I could download and do all my designs just for fun. And then I started high school and I started this exploring technologies program where we kind of go around and for one semester you're trying out different tech programs. So I was woodworking, I was in tech design, I was welding, I was in cosmetology, so doing hair. There were a couple of other ones, but those were the main ones. And I absolutely adored tech design. I loved my teacher. I loved everything that we did there. It was actually my brother's one of his favorite classes. I was in auto. It was probably his favorite course. And so the next 3 years I took that class and I just loved it. And I was a little too quick for how the class would go. I would probably finish what we were supposed to be doing within the first 20 minutes. And then I would be like to my teacher, I'm done. He'd be like, okay, go around, make sure everyone else has help. You had helped all of them, go around, give them your little tips and tricks, and then you can go on a walk or you can just do whatever you need to do. So I've loved it ever since then. And it wasn't necessarily architecture that I wanted to go into. I do have a creative mind, but I appreciate and love the more technical designing aspect of it rather than the big ideas. And for the listeners out there who don't really know the difference between an architectural technologist and an architect, architects are like the big ideas people. They come up with these beautiful concepts and these just crazy unique ideas, and then the technologists are more like the worker bees who make sure that it's something that's actually tangible, and you can it's to code, and it's structurally sound and makes sense and isn't crazy expensive. And we do all the more technical design, like the working drawings and all those sort of things. So that's kind of the difference for the people out there. And I remember sitting down with my tech design teacher, and I was like, sir, like, this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like, I don't want to do architecture. Like, what is this called? Like, if I want to do this, what is this called? He's like, well, it would be architectural technology. And then I started to do some research and decided that Sheridan had a great co-op program, had a really great name. And I've had my heart set on that for few years. I was probably 13, 14 when I kind of decided, even if I didn't have the word for it, I decided that's what I wanted to do.
And how many years did it take for me to finally understand the difference between design and technology?
So I'll always still to this day ask her, what's my program called? What was my program called? She'd always be like, architecture design tech, and just like she just always had different little words for it. So when people get it first try, I'm like, yay.
Yeah. All right, so you knew in high school what course you wanted to take early in high school, like grade 10, right?
10.
What course you wanted to take. You knew what school you wanted to go to, and were you successful in getting into that school?
Yes. So as I said earlier, I do attend Sheridan College, and it was the last school that I was accepted to. I had applied to it was 5 colleges, and I had heard back from all of them. I had early acceptance for some of them and earlier on acceptance. And then I was like, well, I'm happy, but I want Sheridan, and there's nothing else that I want. And
I'll never forget that night, because I was sitting in the living room. I was probably watching the Blue Jays, or I don't even know what time of year it was. And you came out of your bedroom and you were bawling. And I'm like, a teenage daughter, like, they come out of their bed and you have no idea what they might have come up against in the half hour since you talked to them last. And she was so tongue-tied and that she couldn't quite get it out. But finally you were able to share with me that you got accepted at Sheridan, and there was a big celebration that night. And we were very happy because like she said, that's the program that she had her eye on the prize, and that's what she wanted to get into. So you are currently where in terms of school?
So my program, it's 3.5 years long in the co-op program. So there's a non-co-op version, which is just 3 years, so 6 semesters. And then there's the 3.5 year, which I am in. And I'm at all times, I'm either in school in a school semester, or I'm in co-op. So I will be done next August is when I finish my last semester. So I'm about halfway, I'd say. I have 2.5 semesters left, and 1 co-op term left. Okay.
And tell us about the co-op work that you've been doing.
So I've had 2 co-op semesters, I guess, so far, and it was a struggle, to say the least. My school's a little bit different. It's less of a placement and more of a real life experience. You have to put together portfolios, cover letters, your resume, of course, and send it off to wherever you so please, and sort of do that job search on your own, rather than you check your email one day and it's like, okay, this is the place I'm going to. So it was quite difficult to find my first co-op term,
and it was in COVID times too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And we had talked to a couple of our professors and some connections, and everyone was just saying that it's been so hard to find jobs in my field recently, especially with COVID, and it's a pretty competitive field to be in. And then I found the place that I went to.
Right. And one thing that with that program, if you don't find a co-op placement, you actually can't stay in the co-op program at
Mhm.
school. So if you miss a term of co-op, you have to, remove yourself
Yeah.
from that part of the program and not have a co-op placement at all after that.
Yeah,
So,
so if I hadn't gotten that first one, I wouldn't have been able to do co-op any of the other years that I was in school, and I could have found internships, but it's a little bit different.
mhm.
And it co-op is just very, very beneficial. I always thought that my school would help prepare me for co-op, and that was it. But the work that I do in my co-op tremendously helps me with my schoolwork as well. So it's a bit of a back and forth where you're gaining and getting assistance from both ends.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So I think it was during your second co-op placement just recently
Mhm.
that you really started to consider, life after school.
Yes.
So walk us through that. What was going through your mind?
Well, I've always been pretty set. Maybe some outlandish goals, but they felt like home to me. I always wanted an HGTV show. So I wanted to have a TV show where I was designing like really bougie cottages, but super sustainable and off grid. So you can just live there and not have to go to the grocery store as often and not have to, you know, commute to places. It's I had these big dreams, and I knew that I was gonna straight out of school go into work and then build a name for myself, get a reputation, and start getting my own clients, starting my own company, and then gradually getting to a place where I was able to broadcast my work worldwide. So that was my goal up
Mhm.
until a couple of months ago, and that was kind of a decision that I had made when looking at my 10-year, 5-year, 15-year goals. Um, and then all of a sudden I kind of had a almost an epiphany, I guess. I've always loved teaching and helping people. And that's one thing that's I wouldn't say difficult or a disadvantage of my career path, but I love personal interactions. I love being able to guide people, and I definitely get that from my mother. I love to help people, and I love to um share my wisdom per se. I know I'm
Mhm.
19 years old, but I feel like I've lived 1,000 lives. And so I my backup plan, if for some reason I just hated tech, if I hated architecture, if I got 5 years deep and I'm like, this is just not where I want to be, my fallback was to be an English teacher, an high school English teacher. I've always had a little bit of a passion for writing, and I'm really like her if you can't tell. I'm just a miniature version of you. Um I've always loved that, but on the other side, I've always loved teaching. And I remember I was in 5th or 6th grade. I was what, 8, 9, and I had a couple teachers come up to me and they're like, "Haley, we've hand selected you. I wonder if you would be open to doing this." And they asked me to teach a class to 3rd graders about walking them through what we called Halt and Cloud, but which is a Google Drive. So how to make slideshows, how to upload files, how to type out your documents, all that sort of stuff. I went to our computer lab and I had a big the presentation board behind me. I was projecting my screen and I walked them through at a very young age, and I just loved it. And even when I was when COVID started and we were all an online school, I was at the nearing the end of my 11th grade. So when I was in my 12th grade tech design course, we got a new teacher, and she was very smart, very likable woman, but there were many things that she was still learning. And so when I was in online school in my bedroom, I would share my screen to my 30 classmates and walk them through what we were doing that day. Or if they had questions that they'd put in the chat, my teacher would be like, oh, I'm not quite sure how to answer that. And I would kind of be like, oh, I have the answer. And then she'd be like, Hayley, just share your screen. So I would share my screen and I'd walk them through. And I've always loved helping people. And I feel like, of course, you can help people by building them their dream home, and giving them a space where they can feel safe and comfort and just beauty and everything that they want. But more on the social side, I feel like I'm with working in architecture, you're almost lacking that. And that was always something that I really, really craved. And for maybe about a year, I've always thought of starting my own YouTube channel and just sharing my screen and making these videos of walking people through how to use different programs and how to, oh, here's tips and tricks on how to use CAD and how to use Revit that you may not know, or here's how to do this and here's how to do that. I've always wanted to help people and share my knowledge as best as I can. And I think I was driving home from work one day at my co-op and I was like, I would love to be a tech design teacher. Would just love it.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, I talk forever.
Sorry. So after you had that little aha moment driving home in your car, what did you do after that? What steps did you take?
Well, I wasn't quite sure how to combat that. I know that my teacher that I was just talking about, she was in the same program as me. She was in an architectural technology program, but I think at Fanshawe or Mohawk or something. And I never really knew how to get from point A to point B. So what did I do? Did some research. I found out that with my program and my diploma, I will be graduating with an advanced diploma. I will need 2 years of work experience before I can apply to teachers college, and then I can do 2 years of teachers college and then be a teacher. So I looked at some options and I started doing some research, and I was like, it just felt warm inside my chest, and I, got all giddy just thinking about it, which is very similar to how I felt when I decided of my plan a couple of years ago of having my HGTV show.
Right. And I remember, talking about it, over the course of the couple of weeks that you were really, doing your research and focusing in on it, and your excitement just kept growing. And so, did you have a plan on how you were going to make the decision? Like, what were the things that you were looking at?
Well, I think that there are many different things that you need to make a decision. Of course, you need research. Of course, you need to figure out the steps that you actually need to take to get where you need to go. But then it's more than that. It's more than step 1, 2, and 3. It's do you have the passion for it? Do you think that people around you would think that that would be a good thing for you? For me, I know that I talk to you a lot about everything, but especially when it comes to decision making, I wonder why. But then of course I talk to my closest friends and I say, hey, this is something that I'm thinking of. Do you think that you could see me there? Because it's so different. You can see yourself in a position and doing something, but to have people around you who perceive you from an outside perspective, for them to for you to hear their opinions and what they have to say, of course that would help you. And that's what I went and asked my friends. I went and talked to you about it, and I know you told me that I should talk to some other teachers and figure out what they like and what they don't like, and just investigate, I guess.
Did you write anything down?
I'm a very I like to write things down. I feel like my brain often goes too fast for me to understand. So it's very nice to write things down and be like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is why I want to do it. This is other people's opinions. This is how it makes me feel. It's so beneficial to see things. I'm a very visual learner. I have so many thoughts all at once, and to see them organized, and I love color coordinating things and putting things in charts and just having step-by-step instructions. I'm very visual in that sort of sense. So yes, I did.
Okay, great. And did you use any other tools or systems or formulas or anything to help you make the decision?
Well, luckily enough, I do have some connections, and I did use this wonderful app.
I'm glad to hear that, Hayley, because
I-
you haven't always used it.
I know. You know, when you're young, you don't want to do anything that your parents tell you to
That's
do,
right,
right? Your mom's
that's
like,
right.
"Oh, this would be so good for you." I'm like, Psh, what does my mom know?
Mhm.
But now I'm at a point in my life where it's like, if I need to make a decision, especially me being such a visual, and I like to see things laid out, I like to see numbers, I like to see that sort of stuff, why not use an app that is just breaks it down so simply and just makes it like, there's been so many times when I've used this and I've just been like, oh, okay, like it just tells it to you straight. And I do give you some free marketing by telling all of my friends to use it. They're like, oh, I don't know what I should do. I'm like, oh, I have an app for that.
You know, it's interesting to sit here and, you know, talk with my daughter. She hasn't been alive when the topic of decision making wasn't a part of her upbringing, because, you know, I've been focused on the science of decision making for over 30 years, and you heard her mention she's 19. So, you know, it's always been something that my kids were exposed to, and I never wanted to, you know, ram it down their throats, and I always had to let them figure things out on their own. And, you know, I would suggest and guide, but like Hayley says, who, you know, you don't always listen to your parents. But I think as the kids have gotten older, they've really realized the impact that having a tool like the app and the, you know, the 5-step system, the impact that it can have, and that it has had already on their lives. And I, you know, I love that you've come to embrace it. And I think one of the things that I love about hearing this is that, you know, if I can have an impact with what I do with kids, with, you know, teenagers, with you know, high school students who are choosing their career paths, imagine if they're that confident making decisions when they're in their late teens or early 20s, the confidence that they're going to have making decisions for the rest of their lives. So if I can get to these kids when they're young and teach them this, the doors that are going to open and the confidence that it creates in decision making is unparalleled. And I love that my kids have become an example of the possibilities.
I have so much to say about that. I've never not had trust in myself when it comes to making decisions. Of course, I'm a teenager. I've been a ninth grader, and you're not going to make such great decisions when you're kids, but I always knew that I could trust myself to make safe decisions. Maybe not the best decisions, but I always knew that at the end of the day, I would be okay. And if I didn't have that just not rammed down my throat, because it was never like you never forced us to view decisions and that sort of thing the way that you see them, but you always guided us in a way that you created so much trust and confidence. And something I always, no matter what you're talking about, whether it's like learning different social changes as people grow older, and or just learning anything in general, you learn so much as a child. You're just a sponge when you're that age. That's why people say if you want to learn an instrument or a different language, do it when you're younger. So imagine having access to people when they're young, when they're just these sponges, just wanting to just absorb everything around them. They are going to just develop and blossom into such confident and having so much trust internally in themselves. And it's I guess I'm a good show of that, a good example. Like it's been since I was born, right?
And it's true. I think of a decision you made during COVID, and, you know, this will be another podcast episode where she was, you know, determining whether or not she would stay going to school remotely or, you know, go back into class in person. And I let her sit in pain for 2.5 weeks. And she was
I was a wreck. I was
she
so
was
just
in agony,
everything anxious, just so all over the place, scattered.
And, you know, I so wanted to just say, let's just walk through the 5 steps, but I needed her to want to embrace that. And finally, when push came to shove, because you had to give a response,
crunch time.
I sat down and I said, can we just do the app? And we had an answer within like
5 minutes.
2
minutes.
And the wait, so I tried not to push it on you, and I'm glad to hear that it's something that you feel works for you, as opposed to something that's been kind of forced down your throat, because that's all that I do, right?
There's a big difference between like forcing your views and opinions and your just how you live and your mindset on your children, and then there's guiding them and saying, well, this is how I do it, but I'll let you figure it out, and I'll be here, but when you're ready, I'll for sure be here. So that's kind of the difference. Like she never was like, oh, you're making a decision, like let's use the app, let's do this, let's do that. It was never like that. She would just kind of remind me, it's like, we have options, like like I do this for a living. So it was just great. Good. So good. Good. Yeah.
So in terms of school and work and that kind of thing, now what I hear that you've decided is that you're in a school semester now, then you have another co-op semester, then 2 school semesters, and then you'll work in your field for 2 years.
Yes.
And during that time, you'll apply for Teachers College, which you'll need to complete 4 semesters of that.
Of course.
And during the time that you're in Teachers College and about to graduate, that's when you'll start applying for roles as an architectural technology teacher.
No.
What?
Tech design.
Oh, tech design. I can go back to tech design now.
Now you can.
I stripped that from my brain, and now I can go back to. Okay, so you'll apply as a tech design teacher.
That is correct.
Awesome. And how do you feel about that decision?
I feel just like how you were explaining, for me deciding to do remote or hybrid school, and I got that kind of like weight lifted off my shoulders. It was very empowering, I guess is the best word to use. Like I was in a spot where I was so happy with my plan. There was nothing flawed. There was nothing where I was like, oh, maybe this is not what I want to be doing. There was just, maybe the grass is greener over here, even though my lawn is perfect and I maintain it well. I have a sort of mindset to always go for the thing that will make me the most happy. And I know that many people, especially teenagers and 20-year-olds, people around my age, they feel like they have to have their life figured out as soon as they graduate high school. And you went through so much different schooling. Like you tried different things, and you had all of these different experiences and opportunities to bring you to where you are today.
Exactly.
And that was one thing that you always shared and were vulnerable and open about it. So you don't need to have everything figured out right away. And as much as I'd love to, I love planning my entire life ahead of the time, but coming to a decision, a conclusion of wow, what I had before was great, but this is even better. It's just, I still get giddy talking about it. I still talk about it with everybody I can, and it's
I know you do.
It was just, I know it's the right decision for me, and if it's not, then it's not. That's life, right?
Right. Well, I am excited to follow your journey over the next few years, and maybe in a couple of years you can come back and be a guest, and we can see how your decisions are faring for you. All right, Hayley, as always, one final question that we promised we'd get to. So outside of social media apps and obviously the Decision Smith app, because that's everybody's favorite app, I know, what is your favorite app on your phone?
Spider Solitaire.
Oh, and why is that?
I could play Spider Solitaire for hours and it would feel like 2 minutes have passed. I don't know what it is about it. I love it. Just cards. It's just so nice. That's my favorite app, I guess. It's
interesting. I don't think people always know the value of playing mathematical games on your phone. So I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. So that's a great app for sure. Yeah. All right, Hayley, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your stories with me today. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. If you're ready to realize your wildest dreams, come and join us in the Wildly Courageous Women Facebook group, where we're changing people's lives one brave decision at a time. I'm Dana Peever. Until next time, make great decisions and do life fun. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Wildly Courageous Women. Keep listening to hear more stories of these incredible women realizing their wildest dreams. If you have a story to tell about a decision that you've made that has impacted your life, I'd love to feature you as a guest. Please get in touch and don't forget to grab my latest gift by clicking below. I'm Dana Peever. As always, make great decisions and do life fun.